תגיד, יש אופציה שאני יכול לשמוע גם, כי המטרה היא שבעתיד, כשאנשים ישאלו שאלות, אני אתרגם אותם והוא יתרגם את הרב. יש אפשרות לחבר את זה?
אם אתה תעשה את זה, אני חושב לך גם סרט כזה, בכל מקרה?
אז תחבר, כן. אם רק תחבר את הדיבורית. לא, הוא יכול לשמוע. אל תחבר את זה.
לשמוע, כן. אבל אם תרצה לעשות את זה, נצטרך לך אחת כזה. אבל מה שנחמד זה אם הוא כן ישמע מה קורה פה, כי אז יהיה לו פידבק, זאת אומרת, יהיה לו מוניטור, מה קורה איתי.
כן תראו שאתה תשמע עכשיו את הרב. אתה רוצה לשמוע גם את השידור.
אז זה חייב מבחוץ.
זה בנפרד.
אם אני ארצה לתרגם את האנשים ששואלים שאלות, אני לא יכול להכניס את הדיבורית? ובכלל לא לחבר את זה לכאן?
אתה יכול. מה זה לתרגם? איך לתרגם?
המטרה היא שאני אתרגם, האנשים שישאלו שאלות, אני אתרגם אותם.
כן, אז אנחנו נוסיף את זה גם כן פה.
איך עושים את זה?
אני לא רוצה.
לא, סבבה, אבל זה אפשרי.
נוסיף עוד אחד פלוס,
סבבה. אבל באתי זה טוב מאוד אפשר.
ואימן, תשמור לו שלא יקלק שיש לזה.
אני לא יודע בשקט, נחמן אגב.
אנחנו רוצים פה עבירת אולפן, נכון?
זהו, כי אם אנחנו רוצים לעשות את זה משהו אחר כך. אני קצת מסתכל פה, אבל כן.
אז תשמע, נחמן, אתה יודע כשהמושב שלך מדבר לך לא גם לתלות פרס.
אין בעיה.
אני שם את זה כדי לראות אם יש לנו עשותו בשידור. אתה שומע? זה חזק מאוד. תוריד את המיקרופון שלו קצת.
זה?
כן. שנייה. חזק מדי. משהו פה ראיתי. בגלל זה. בגלל זה.
הייתי שמח לראות את המסך קצת יותר קרוב אליי, אנחנו שנראה גם מה...
רגע, משהו פה בעייתי.
וואו, חזק.
שנייה, טעות שלי. אני מעיף את זה.
רגע, למה?
מוניטור אוף צריך.
רגע, אני משמע את עצמי כשהייתי על מיוט. לא, זה לא עושה מיוט?
למה?
זה לא עושה מיוט? כי אני עשיתי ככה, זה אמור להיות על מיוט.
There are things we are speaking off record.
יהודה, אני חושב שאחר כל מה שהגעתנו עד היום.
לא, אבל למה הרעש?
אני
אני לא
לא יודע
מה הרעש.
מה שהיה היום על הרקורד.
חכה, משהו פה בעייתי.
יוטיוב. הייתי בטוח שאתה עושה מיוט.
שנייה, עכשיו ניתחתי. יש פה איזה בעיה.
זה מה שהאנשים עכשיו שומעים?
כן. יש רעש, נכון לנו? פה, עכשיו בסדר. יופי, בסדר.
אתה נשאר פה איתנו, יהודה?
כן. עכשיו, נחבר אותך. כן.
I'm gonna hit the bathroom.
Go and hit it.
אני לא מבסוט מהרעש הזה. אוקיי? כל הקליקים שומעים גם, בסדר? צריך לקחת את זה בחשבון.
אוקיי.
גזיל לי למיקרופון? אולי... יכול להיות.
אני עוד ששבועיים שלוש קונה מחשב וגיימינג, משהו מפלצתי, אז לא יקרו אותו בעת.
רגע, שנייה, אנחנו חכה רגע. אחד. זה לא מטורף. תשבו בפנים. כן, תשבו, צריכים לראות אתכם, לא?
יש פה נכון? קחת את כל סאונד אופנימי שם?
עכשיו אני בודק עכשיו, נראה לי להסתדר. אני בדקתי כבר את כל האופציות. יכול להיות שכשמחברים לזה יש כזה בעיה.
אז אני לא יכול לדעת.
אני בודק. אבל יש דיליי מטורף.
תשלומים ג'ודה, אתה מסדר הפעם. אז מה קורה, זה לא... זאת אומרת שזה עדיין? יש פה אולי איזה פידבק נשמע כזה. מה?
יהיה בסדר.
נראה שמתחילים, אז...
אוקיי. עכשיו זה בסדר. אני יכול לחבר אותך. אני חושב שזה יהיה בסדר. אני יודע רק עוד כמה זמן. זה זה? מה זה שלך?
זה הספיקר.
יהודה זה אותו לינק שלך, כן?
כן. יש פה איזשהו מקור קול. יש לו מיקרופון פנימי?
יש לו מה?
מיקרופון פנימי?
יש, קודם מוספתי. אתה רואה שאתה שומע כאילו מהשידור שעכשיו יוצא החוצה ביוטיוב?
לא נראה לי, כן. זה אוקס מיקרופון, זה אתה. נראה לי. מה אתה לוגיטק?
כן, לוגיטק. ועכשיו כן? הייתי על מיוט. כן, הייתי על מיוט, המיוט עבד. אז אתה שומע אותי כאילו שם?
מצוין שאתה עושה על מיוט, כי באמת יש...
אני שם על מיוט כשאני לא מדבר. אז עכשיו כשאני מדבר אתה אמור לשמוע אותי בדיליי כאילו? כן. יש דיליי ממש הרבה?
יש. אבל זה בסדר, זה...
לא, אוקיי. 1, 2, 3, אוקיי. Okay, test, 1, 2, test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1.
מצוין, שומעים הכל בסדר.
אוקיי.
פיקס, סאונד פיקס.
אוקיי.
אבל יש לי פשוט עכשיו 6 שאני עושה את זה.
אולי עדיף שלא בינתיים.
יש אבל דילי של 20 שניות.
אבל הכל מסונכרן בין הפיד ואתה מקליט את זה גם פה על המחשב.
עוד לא, אבל שהוא לא יתחיל תלחץ.
כן. זאת אומרת, ה-start recording הוא רק מתחיל להקליט, אבל למעשה כבר עכשיו השידור רץ? זאת אומרת, עכשיו מי שמחובר ללינק שלך, יהודה אמור לשמוע את זה שם. אוקיי. אמא שלך לא רוצה להישאר? מה זאת אומרת? למה? You love her so much. מה? למה? לפענח חלומות. תן לי שקט. ניכנס לזה. Good evening, אני לא שומע. אני אקרא ליהודה שנתחיל את זה בזמן. זה מתחיל כבר, למה אנחנו לא זה? מה קורה? מה קורה, נחמן? למה זה לא... רגע. אני לא שומע. יהודה, אולי תנעל גם את הדלת הזאת או משהו. או שתוציא קיצרות החוצה שלא ייכנסו.
בעיקר ושוב עד שנגיע בשיעור אחר נקבל תבנית לפתור שנפש נהיה כוחו שיש רבדים שונים בנפש האדם ויש רבדים שונים של חלומות. אנחנו נלמד באופן כללי לפתור חלום. לא נהיה עדיין מומחים ונוכל לקבל אנשים, כל אחד מכם לפתור חלומות, אבל בהחלט כל אחד יוכל להתעסק עם החלומות שלו באופן יותר מקצועי ממה שהוא יתעסק איתם עד כה. היום סיפרה לי מישהי חלום שלה. סיפרה לי שהיא חלמה שהיא נכנסה, היא בחורה, היא עוד לא נשואה. היא חלמה שהיא בהיריון ושהיא נמצאת בבית של הוריה, שבתוך הבית הדברים החמימים כן זכורים. איך פותרים כזה חלום? איך יודעים למה הכוונה? איך יודעים מה מסמן כל דבר? אז על זה אנחנו הולכים ללמוד. אז מה היה בדיוק פתרון לחלום הזה? אז כל דרך המחשבה עדיף שתהיה תמיד מהכללים אל הפרט. כאשר אנחנו מייצרים איזשהו שיח, איזשהו דיון במשהו, כדאי לנו להבין את הכלל, ואחר כך לקחת את הפרטים ולראות איך הם נכנסים לתוך אותם כללים. אז מטרת השיעור של היום להגיד את יסודות, אבל לא מספיק תורת הכלל. מי שפה רוצה לספר חלום שלו, כדי שנבין ואחר כך אני אשתמש בחלומות הללו כדי
היה איזה משהו, אבל שיהיה
משהו, בבוקר, הוא ראה שזה חלום, לפעמים החלום מפעים אותנו. טוב. אז זה סוגי חלומות, כמו שאותה חברה חלמה, ככה גם אנחנו חולמים חלומות, טלפונים למי שיש, יופי. אז לשם מה בכלל אנחנו רוצים...
So what are we even want to deal with dreams for? The Gaon Mivilna,
שיש דברים שאפשר להשיג בשינה,
genius from Vilna, said that we can attain things in dream
שאנחנו נמצאים במצב
that we cannot attain when we're asleep, when we are awake.
שמשפיעים עלינו,
There are many factors that affect us that are related to external
מחשבות שלנו,
things, our thoughts, how we want to appear in other people's eyes, and our subconscious
יש בו מסרים
has all sorts of messages that we
יכולים לקבל משם הרבה מאוד אינפורמציה
can get much information from it about ourselves and also about what's to happen for us in the future.
שבעירות אנחנו לא
And things that when we're awake, we don't even dare to think about and we don't want to know them.
מדחיקים את הדברים הללו.
We push them away, not because they're bad things necessarily, sometimes even if it's good things. And the dream or the sleep allow us to attain these things within our souls.
החלום,
The dream
יש לנו נקודת המודע שלנו,
encounters us
דברים
with our subconscious,
שלעיתים
and it tells us things that sometimes appear to us that are good to bring to the conscious, but the question is the conscious good or not? The answer is that we see many processes
שהם יותר טובים מהמודע.
that are better in the subconscious than in the conscious, like the heart or the lungs. They work in a fashion which is unconscious, and if we need to think how to operate them, surely we would go wrong and do it incorrect. Furthermore, there are actions that we do,
ואנחנו מלמדים את עצמנו,
and we teach ourselves,
צד המודע,
we teach our subconscious to act them.
בן אדם לא
Like, for example, when a person studies how to drive. So when he studies,
לעשות את זה באופן,
he wants to eventually be able to do it automatically. So his subconscious will do it automatically.
אני אומר את זה מכיוון שיש
And I say this because there's a thought for many people that if they do something consciously, it's better. But it's not true. There are things that are better to be done through our subconscious, so we'll be free to do other things in our conscious. If I drive in the car,
אני נוהג באופן חופשי.
when I drive free,
התרחשו אירועים
if other occurrences will occur, I'll be able to react better because
לא
I'll
מאוד לחוץ,
won't be stressed
לא מאוד לחוץ, לעניין
for the matter of
פעילות היומיומית. תארו לכם שאני
my daily activity. Imagine if we had to think within our conscious how the heart works or
גם לא היינו יודעים.
the pancreas,
גם
we would know, and also
אפילו דברים אחרים
we also create other things that work without thinking,
כל פעם מחדש.
without needing to think about them anew.
כשאנחנו עושים מחשבה,
Like, for example, when we create a thought, we don't want to start all the time anew.
תכנתנו אותו
Although we programmed it,
לפעול לבד. אני
we
אומר
let it
כדי שתסכימו
act automatically. I say this so you will agree with me and or with yourself that the subconscious is important.
כל תת המודע שלנו למודע.
We don't need to turn our entire subconsciousness to consciousness. What yes and what not.
לעבד מחדש.
The things that are important for us to rearrange will bring outside. And the things we do not need will leave in the subconscious. And our spiritual and mental nature does it automatically. Many people do not remember dreams.
אנחנו גם נלמד לזכור.
We will also learn how to remember dreams.
נצטרך ברוך השם.
Everything is okay with you, thank God. Especially that I know you, so I know that everything is normal.
אז אנחנו צריכים לראות
So we need to see that we definitely will have to see how to remember a dream, what it is that we would like to remember. What to leave and what to throw away. Science, since it's driven by actual desires, but they are limited, so it also limits our observation. Through the science, it's hard to understand dreams, and we'll talk about the way that science died.
כוונות, נחמן כוונות.
את העולם, תקר לי, הייתי ליד הים וראיתי את השם.
לא, זה רץ מהר ואז מפסיק.
לא דבר שאני אומר לכם,
Same thing like I tell you a cake. I write a cake and it's clear to you that the word cake represents something that you need to interpret in your head as a cake. That's how the world works. Even when I look at my friend and he tells me that yesterday I went next to the beach and I saw the sunset and it was wonderful, I understand the words he say. He says, this is the matter that comes to me. There's something beyond that, obviously, and I need to interpret within myself what comes from him. The same thing with a dream. It comes to us through words or images. There are people who dream with sounds. I don't know how it happens for each one of you. There are people who even dream with smells. But most people, they see visual images. But it's not always like that. When we dream, we need to learn how to interpret within us without getting confused what it is that we need to see. Like I see the letters and I see the word desires. I understand that I read these letters, D-E-S-I-R-E. So I know that there's something within me that I need to interpret. So we need to go through a transformation that when I dream a dream, something goes within me and I'll need to learn how to go to that place that is truthful within me, that doesn't lie, in order to interpret the dream. If I'll go to that place that lies within me, which are the distorted forms within us, so the interpretation of the dream will also be interpreted as something sad, bad, or interrupting. So our goal here, our purpose, is to learn forms or patterns, correct patterns for correct interpretation. It's not only, I'll also give examples. I'll give you a table or a chart that if you learn something, for example a snake, so it's like that, or if you dreamed about a pencil, we need to understand that when we put together letters, so we have something of the collective and more complex patterns that we need to understand. So what we wanted to show now is that there is something beyond the words that we speak. There's something beyond how I remember the dream. There's something beyond that I want to attain. When we want to interpret the dream, the question is it just because it's interesting? Am I interested in what happened in the dream? Or do I want to create some changes, new changes within my life? If I want to create a new change within my life, then like everything, we want to direct the dream to be better people, more loving, more directed to our goals in life. We're not going to teach, and it's not recommended for you to do it in other things in life, to learn how to interpret life, the dreams, only because it's interesting. It's not enough, because then we use it for bad things. We want to learn how to interpret the dreams, so together I'll know how to take that thing that I learned from the dream and go to other things and improve myself as a person. Not just my abilities, not just my power, rather my my being a good person. Up to here, if you had other expectations to the matter of the dream, I'd like to hear it. So if there are expectations that I have not said, that I did not say, so we can discern them and see that if they meet my expectations, I'll try to direct these lessons to that place. Please. I was hoping that the dear friend is telling us that he wishes through the dream to be able to take advantage or use things that he cannot take advantage or use when he's awake. Yeah, this is what these courses are directed towards. So we'll be able to reach understandings that I cannot reach when I'm awake. Are there other things that you expected? You've not expected. You did not expect. Planning ahead what I want to dream of. Okay, on the fourth lesson, we'll learn how to plan what subject it is that I want to dream of, which is called a question of a dream. How do I create an inquiry or a question of a dream? We'll also learn what do I do with dreams which are bad, which shaken my soul. There's something called a tavad halom, embetterment of a dream, and we'll learn how to go to sleep without so many daydreaming, and also how to learn to dream the right things. זאת נקטע. I was hoping to see what's the relationship, or what's the relation between a dream and the words achlama, milchama, all these words that have the same letters like halom. The question is if the same letters indicate the same things to us, and if not, what is the relationship? Okay. כל פעם שזה עובר לקהל אולי זה נקטע. אני לא יודע איך אומרים לי. מה זה בשבילך מעבר לחלום? What is for you beyond a dream? באנגלית synchronicity. Synchronicity. בעברית כל מיני צירופי מקרים עם משמעות שקורים לך גם מעבר. All kind of things that happen at the same time. לא חשבתי לדבר על זה, אבל אני אדבר על זה כי ביקשת. בסדר, אני בהמשך לדבר על זה. מה? סינכרון? סינכרון? לא, הוא אומר לא. Synchronicity זה לא סינכרון, זה... He's talking about synchronicity. במקרים שהם כאילו... לא. זה מקרים שהם לא... בהסתברות הרגילה. Things that happen. מה זה אומר? אוקיי. And what do they tell us? אז זה נקטע כל הזמן. זה נקטע כל פעם שעובר למישהו אחר בקהל, אני לא שומע. חבל, אנחנו לא יכולים לעשות איזה משהו רציף, שיהיה איזה פרודקט. זה קשור עכשיו למחשב, אתה חושב? Really? To practice and bring impressions, so we'll show you what it is we do with these impressions. We will also speak of what a dream is, a dream within a dream, when we dream that we are dreaming, and we can get into a dream from within a dream. There's also a third phase we can speak of. I wonder if there are degrees between awakening, awakeness, and so could it be that our state right now of wakefulness
שאלה טובה, אני אדבר על זה. אני אדבר גם על השיעור כבר, נדבר.
It's a good question. I'll speak about that. What's the difference between prophecy and awakeness? And we'll understand what sleep is and what it's for. Oh, the men are going to speak a little bit. Just two things. First, everyone said it in other words, but what are the Katuashim? You're talking about more clear dreams that are not vague, and also about a dream that repeats itself, even in different ways, but it repeats itself. Relation or contact with the next world, with people that died. Whether we can reach or direct to see people that already died. Can we invite them to dreams? How we do that? And if we do it, is it good? When is it recommended and when is it prohibited to do? And also if they already come, well, if they come by themselves, then what to do in these cases? Okay, sure. Yes. You have many expectations from 5 sessions. But you are challenging me. Whether there's a meaning for a state of being able to remember dreams for years and then suddenly a long period where I cannot remember the dreams. Okay, fine, we'll mention that. But write these things, because if I will not mention it, remind me to touch on it. In continuation to what Yael said, can you also deal with or discuss things, certain people that you don't even know that appear in your dream? Yes. Today someone told me that it happened, and it happens quite often, that many times it happens the opposite, that we come to a situation in life and suddenly we remember that the situation is familiar to us and we don't know where from, but we dreamt exactly this thing that I see right here, that we see, and sometimes to the very details. So if it's like that, it actually confuses us, because if everything is already predetermined in the dream, then is there anything we do? And what is it that's predetermined and what's not? Sometimes these are just signs, and sometimes these are people that we actually see visually. These are things that happen, and we'll discuss them. Rav, can we also discuss telekinesis and telepathy within a dream? No, that's a whole different area, and you've brought this topic many times before, and I know you have much interest in it, but this is not a subject that we'll discuss here. But it's good that you are insisting. I see that you're interested in this field. Okay, so let's start. There are 3 opinions regarding the matter of the research of the essence of the soul and the place of the dream. Who dreams? Is it the brain, or the soul, or the spiritual side? There is the physiology as opposed to the spirituality. And we need to see that generally there are 3 opinions. There are actually more, but generally there are 3 opinions regarding the dreams. The first opinion is that the soul, where the actual dreaming takes place, is a matter, and everything within it are corporeal material things that can be measured within a lab. and it's only a technical thing. And gradually, as science develops, it can understand more these issues of the dreaming and know them. We'll talk about them. There's a second opinion that the soul is spiritual. It exists in and of itself, and it acts on the physical reality. So if I dreamt a dream, so later it will happen in the corporeal world, that spirituality affects the physical part. And the third opinion is the opinion of Kabbalah, and that's of course what we're going to learn. This is the opinion that we're going to learn, and I'm going to present it soon. So regarding the first opinion, the soul is totally materialistic, and everything within it is matter, and the physiologist, when he deals with dreaming, he measures how many pulses are within you, how many times your blood pressure went up and down, what parts of the brain are the ones which were dealing or interrupted or disturbed, and what happened to you in the dream. And this side doesn't take into consideration the person's soul. The physiologist, physician, gets support from the advance of science. They're able to build all kind of machines, robots, that actually create processes that up to not too long ago were considered. It's a function of life itself, and we thought that life is what creates it, and suddenly we see that, much like in science, I suddenly see that the cloud brings down the rain, or we find certain parts in the brain that if we stimulate them, they create pleasure. And we see that the entire if you stimulate it, you have pleasure. So how can it be that a pleasure or the spiritual thing comes from different? Once you used to think that it was a spiritual thing, that the Creator sends you love, that there's the God of love, and suddenly you see that it's not like that. You see that there's something physical, because since every time new things are found or discovered, so it stimulates the scientists to think that it is something of matter. The physiologist does not believe in mysticism, because the sensation deals with the part, the particular, which is the place of the person himself. This is called a subjective place. And the natural science, or life science rather, they show the connection between the different parts of reality, but do not expose what happens to each one in and of himself. They measure the nature. If I say that now this cup is something I like, then it's something private, something for me. If I need to bless on the water, amen, then they tell me this is your private matter. We can measure how you lift the cup. What happens within your thought, whether you enjoy it or not, we cannot measure that. We can only measure what happened in the brain and what parts moved, what parts were stimulated. Therefore, technical people, when they're asked, tell me, how was the trip? What does he say? What do you mean, how was it? We were here, we were there, we came back, and I came back. That's it, that's how it passed. Why? Because he doesn't think emotion. He thinks facts. He thinks science. When we think science, then we also think the dream the same way. No, there are many things that are explained wonderfully this way, and we don't have these things, and the person only speaks in a mystical way, and he's asked, how was the trip? He says, oh, it was like a dream. I was hovering above, I heard the birds singing. Yeah, but what happened in the trip? Where were you? Oh, I was really in upper world, and this angel spoke to me, and this angel spoke to me. Even this side is a side that cannot tell us what the person did. So all this side or aspect that's called the part of the collective. So when they give me information, they tell me, here, there's a cup, you see a cup, I see a cup, let's speak about it. But what happened to you in your soul, it happened to you. I don't speak of that at all, says the science. If there are phenomena which are physiological, I can speak of it. Otherwise, there's nothing for me to speak of. Science does not speak about the essence of things, rather about the relationship between them. He doesn't tell you if it's good or not, that there is an atomical or nuclear explosion. It tells you that it can create a lot of energy, and it can create bombs. If a bomb is good or not, it doesn't tell you that. Einstein was actually shocked that he realized that a nuclear bomb could be created from his revelations. I say all this because I know that it's perhaps less interesting for us here, but it also needs to interest us because there are many researchers, and we can really be assisted much from science. There are people who've gone quite a way in science, but it's always up to some degree. It doesn't touch the individual point of each and every one of us, which are the points that are so important for us, for our soul. Also, with people whose mental relationship are different. For example, when two people see a reality and each one feels or understands something totally different about this reality, science will not change anything about that. For example, if you don't like the color gray and someone likes the color gray, for the scientist it's a gray color. It doesn't matter for him. Therefore, the scientific side does not understand anything, rather only explains things within a framework of other things that we know, that we have some sort of an agreement on, a common agreement. And that's how science deals with things. So our conclusion of this entire scientific aspect, and I recommend it within these meetings, you'll read more things about dreams, so you'll know a little bit more challenged with other information about dreams, and so you can compare it with information that we learn here. But my conclusion, at least, from the matter of this entire physiological dealing of dreams, is that we cannot only deal with dreams through the science. And why do I say regular science and not, because there's also in scientific science. The scientific science, we will use that, but when I say the regular science, I mean the physiology, whatever is perceived within the five senses. And that's not enough for us, because it speaks only about the phenomena that are measured, which are important things, but it does not penetrate what actually starts everything. So that's one form that science deals a lot with these days, but that's not what we came to deal with today. But we will use a little bit of things from science. The second opinion is that the soul is spiritual. It exists in and of itself, and it has implications on our mental reality. The mental tells us that each and every person has something special, a special interpretation. So much so that we say that that's a matter of each one in and of himself. Each one stands in and of himself. If you dreamt this, or if you felt this way, then it's something that belongs only to you. If it belongs only to me, then how can I share this? How can I understand it? Is there no research on that? And that has implications on the physical world. How people say that all the diseases are psychosomatic, that if you had some kind of a feeling, then it affects your physical world. Even the concepts that are measured are all not common. What's big in my eyes is not big in another person's eyes. What's beautiful in my eyes is not necessarily beautiful in someone else's eyes. Therefore, many of the concepts that science does not deal with, that have no place in science, are specifically in this thought that the soul is spiritual. So concepts like love and despair and happiness, there is no, or hope or longing, there's no place for them in science. Science has a place for numbers, digits, molecules. So we say longing. I don't know what that is. You can feel a very big longing or a small one. But within the soul, we do speak about these things. What is remembering or feeling, sensation? The mental is called the singular authority or the singular domain. And the public domain does not have any attainment in it, because my soul is what dictates. The soul, of course, is the beginning of every action. The importance, and it what actually dictates. So there's no correlation between what happens outside to what happens within their soul. They say, if I'll dream such and such, so surely this and that will happen. But could be that the relationship is different. They perceive there is science outside, there's a world outside, and there's my internal world. My internal world is what dictates. But there are also other things outside which are physical. נתקע. תהיה ערני, לא איש, תסתכל על זה מדי פעם, כי רואים מתי זה נתקע. And to their opinion, the physical phenomena are changing according to the internal phenomena. Therefore, many they deal a lot with the soul, and the soul needs to influence the physical world. And here, many people who come to study about dreams, they come to learn this way. Tell me what the dream means, so I'll know what will happen to me within a year or two, or so I'll know when I'm going to get married, or so I'll know if I'm going to buy this house or not, and so on. This is mostly what people find interested in, because they believe that if something happens in their soul, but what they really care about is not their soul. What they really care is what happens in the actual world outside, the physical world. And they say, if I want to know about the physical world, but my mental world is the one that everything starts from, then I study like with science. But here I study on this, study through the science, like in prophecy. The prophet said that such and such will happen, so I'll know that such and such will happen, and that's all I care about. That's what we care about usually. A person comes and says, I dreamt such and such. Rav, what does it mean? What's going to happen with me? Am I really going to get married? Am I going to succeed in this business? That's what you find interesting? No, it's not interesting. But it is interesting. You're saying it's not interesting, but I do find it very interesting. That's why I came to study the course about dreams. But I'll show you why it's not interesting. The third opinion, when I'll say it, What I see, the cup here, is also spiritual. I don't want you to get too confused. I'm not going to expand much on it. Whoever studied the course about the brain will know more. But the wisdom of Kabbalah says that what you see externally in the physical world is actually spirituality. So what is corporeality? It's like you saw something through a mirror. You looked into a mirror and you saw the image. When you looked at the image, you saw something. So if spirituality is the actual image that reflected through the mirror, when you look at the mirror, you see the image or the reflection of spirituality. So this mirror is our consciousness. When we see spirituality through the consciousness of time and space, what we actually see is corporeality, meaning I see the cup now, I see it through my consciousness. If my consciousness interprets to me, meaning the mirror suddenly shows me, for example, something 6 times, so I'll see that it's 6 times, and if my mirror shows me that it's bigger or smaller or fatter or slimmer, so that's what I'm going to see. But what's actually true? I have to interpret this image, this reflection. I need to take off if I want to see what's within spirituality. I'll have to interpret by deducing or reducing or taking off from this image everything that actually caused me to see the world in a corporeal fashion, meaning when the dream comes to me, and it will come to me in a corporeal manner, I'll have to interpret it in a mental or a mental fashion. Well, you can relax. We'll also deal a little bit with what's the corporeal meanings of things in the dream. But you'll see that this is not the most important value within a dream. The most important value, where do you need to go mentally speaking? Huh? The most important value of the course about the dreams, and in general the dealing with dreams, is that you'll know, pursuant to the dream, what type of work and what's the goal that you need to aspire to in solving or interpreting the dream. What science speaks of corporeality is something that's going to pass by. It's like that reflection or this image. The psychology and the physiology, they all work in the same plane. Everything is within a person's conscious. Everything I perceive, everything I see does not exist outside of myself. But that's only the way I perceive it. Yeah. But what you perceive subjectively still exists outside of your consciousness. Yeah, it does exist outside of the consciousness, but I perceive it within me. Perhaps it exists in some form, but I perceive it the way I interpret it. For example, through a window, can we pass? Through glass? It depends. The light sees the window and says, wow, I can pass by, I can pass through. But a person says, no, I've been stopped. So it depends on the observer. If I view with my eyes and I see something outside of the window, it's okay. But if I want to go through the window, I can't. In the eyes of the beholder, they're the ones who actually dictate the thing itself. So imagine that imagine there was no time and space, and you're being told, listen, your forefathers exited Egypt, Mitzrayim. Oh wait, the corporeal point says 6,000 years they went out of Egypt, but there's no time, and there's also no Mitzrayim, there's no Egypt. So what is Mitzrayim? Mitzrayim is the narrowness, the same letters in Hebrew, this narrowness of his corporeal perception. And what is Av, the father? It's the root that's within you. meaning the root that was within me exited from this narrow perception. And this is what the Exodus from Egypt is called. So if I want to study Torah, and not just Torah, let's say a friend gives me a gift. Do I look at the fact that he brought me a gift, or do I understand there is something here beyond the gift, and that the gift is only something corporeal that has something beyond it, but by virtue of bringing that gift, something happened within my friend's soul, which I perceive, and he also perceives that as love. So we had an exercise here. Hashem did an exercise for us. He created an exercise for us in our, through which we can practice. Like the example I always give, that we take pilots and they put them in a simulator and they tell them practice. They were put in an airplane and they really felt that they're within an airplane, and they practice within the simulator, or perhaps, and after a few months they take them out of them and they're told, listen, it was only a simulation. But did they learn how to fly? They did. So the same thing here, we practice in how to love. That's what we practice, how to love. And there are many details within that. There's one who sits within the simulator and he doesn't do anything. He plays with the buttons, green, red. Oh, we can make some kind of a band from it. And there's one person that actually practices how to fly, and whoever practices how to love here can reach it, and whoever doesn't practice how to love, he gets all kind of phenomena that the simulation disturbs him. Instead of practicing with him, it disturbs him. What does it bring upon him? Fears, anger, quarrels with people. So the things in the corporeal world really bother him. And why does it happen to him? It's because he does not interpret the simulation correctly. You came here to practice, and the best practice for us is within this simulation that exists within reality. Because if I work with this simulation, I need to work correctly with it, but it's unreal. Because our sages tell us that this world is like a passing shadow. Therefore, does it not create within a person's soul some kind of apathy? Well, you say, on the one hand, I have to practice how to love. It's not good for me to treat it with apathy. I want to feel that like a Syrian airplane or a jet is approaching me and I need to do something. Oh, so I saw children playing video games, and there's so much in it that they actually cry and they scream if they succeed or not. What happened? What happened? It's nothing. These are all lights. These are moving lights. I don't even know how it works. So that's what they go crazy about so much. It doesn't really matter what happens physically. It matters that we think that something happens, and it develops something within us. For example, the competitive, this world, when it came to our consciousness, it came for us to practice, not to do too much of, not to make too much of the simulation, but yes, for the practice. And we need to maintain this world. We came here to practice. Don't make such a big fuss out of the simulation, but do make something big of it and consider it for the practice purposes. But there's also an issue of keeping the simulation in some way, because otherwise you cannot do it. Do the processes. Yes, I'm telling you, keep the processes within the simulation, but don't say, God forbid that. God forbid. And do not say that at all. And that you don't even think or remember such a thing, that תשלימו לבד. אנחנו לא מקליטים?
מה שאתה אומר, אתה משדר בשידור חי. לא שמענו כלום אחר כך.
אוקיי, אבל
זה נכון, צריך לשמור עליה.
And health in this world is only a simulation, and it is important. And I also eat healthy food. And I don't eat all kind of preservatives or empty calories. I try. But it's only in order to keep the simulation, the simulator. And we need to keep the simulator. But beyond that, we have to remember that along with that, this is only a means. I take care of my car, but the car is not myself, and the car is not what's most important, and not the health is what's most important. It's rather what I do with this health. People who retain or maintain the simulation or the simulator too much, and they identify with it too much. So the role of the dream, with this understanding, is for us to use the dream, to interpret it, and how to continue practicing in life. Because our entire role in life is to learn how to practice and be more loving and be more relaxed and more connecting, to learn how to work with very clear boundaries, to be proud of our way in life, to know how to value things right, to have some kind of an internal completeness, both technically and mentally. So when we reach our goals, we'll really know how to love, to be able to stay within the pleasure. So I give this exercise for couples. Look at each other for 2 minutes into each other's eyes, and they can't do it. For just 2 minutes, they can't stay within love. They have to do something. They have to move. Why? It's this rapid technicality of this world. Oh, this is a great question. The dream, he asks, is it part of the simulation? The answer is that it has two sides. One aspect, it is not a part of the simulation. When it comes to me and I remember it, and it became a part of the simulation because I remember it through a story. There you go. כי אפשר, אין לנו איזה משהו מהתחלה עד הסוף שאפשר. Exactly. What finger it connects to, why did he cut? We'll also learn about the Parashat Ito. Yes. אז כאילו בעצם כל פעם עכשיו מקבל איזה לוד כזה שהוא לא מצליח לעמוד בו? הוא אומר שהוא שומע טוב שם, כאילו, כששומעים. אתה גם שומע את זה דרך היוטיוב? ואיך זה נשמע?
נשמע מאוד חלק, מפתיע. הוא אפילו לגמרי יותר.
אתה גם שומע את היוטיוב? לא. גדול. זה קורס שכבר היה פעם. כן. אתה לעשות ריסטארט לתוכנה או מה? יש לו פיד שם? Sometimes the path is chosen for you. Recalculate the path, and sometimes the path is chosen for you in order to move you back to the place which is the most worthy for you. Sometimes you're being allowed to be wrong much more, so you'll know better. But in general, you are directed, the simulation is directed to the worthy, the correct place. So if we deviate, that's where the snake, the nachash, comes. But it's not because it didn't go correct, it's because they want to advance you more. They want to awaken you for a better path. Rav, we said before that within corporeality, the simulation is like the dream with, because what is the simulation within spirituality? What is the simulation within spirituality? Oh, speak slower so I can understand. We brought this examples, Nikita. What? Oh my God. What is simulation? Not. We brought this example of the simulation. And what is the simulation not in corporeality? Because you said that in corporeality it's the dream. Let's see if I understood you clearly. You're asking whether everything corporeal, if we also interpret it internally. So if we say that the simulation within the corporeal world, what does it mean in the spiritual world? Did I say correctly? Okay, so simulation, the simulation that we have here are the methods of our practice in the spiritual world, how to practice it within the soul. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a simulation where you need to prepare homework, that you have for tomorrow some lesson. Same thing. Before a person feels in his heart, he needs to prepare homework. Homework meaning homework of thought before it expands to the heart. Because if he's not going to prepare the homework, it's going to expand to the heart incorrect. So if to prepare the thought that will be ready to expand to the heart. And if he does not want to prepare the homework, then only what he knows, that's what's going to expand to the heart. And perhaps things that he doesn't want or not ready for will expand there. And last question, and we'll continue. A person who dreams consistently, night after night, and he remembers his dream, does it affect him as far as him being sleepy during the day or being tired? Well, this is a question you should look at. She's asking me, does that affect the how tired I am? So she's asking, what is the corporeal interpretation of the dream? And I'm telling her, perhaps it will affect one way or another, and perhaps it will always affect your tiredness. But that's not what matters. It matters. I find interest in it, but just a little bit. 80% that interests me is what it means within my soul. Can you really tell me that this person, there is something that he has a problem that he carries for many years because he doesn't come to deal with things in life, and a certain point that he does not deal with? And if yes, I need to find what it is. So I need to interpret the dream in such a way. And if you'll be tired or not right now, why would I care? It's like a person asked me when I run, so what shoes should I use, Adidas or Puma? I don't care. Why would I care what shoes I'll use? I care what you feel inside. Let's continue a little. There's an order in interpreting the dream, which is the optimal order. In order to have this interpretation match the private and the public domain as one. There are between what a person sees outside, or it tells you something about her soul. And we need to understand what it means within the soul. Not if she'll be pregnant or not. Rather, what does it tell us about her soul? And then when I know about the soul, then I'll go and do actions that meet or that match this mental correction or this mental advancement. And this is the way by which we want to think. Again, when we will interpret the dream, we'll interpret it in such a way that we'll try to understand what is the tikkun, the correction, or the mental advancement I need to do. And then I'll do such actions that will help me to correct the nefesh, the soul. Because even when I look at my world now, and I see what relationships I have in life, who I fought with, what things repeat themselves in life, what happens to me, why do I want to know that? In order to know how to continue to correct my soul. Because our goal, after all, is a mental goal. Even if a person wants a lot of money, a big house, a beautiful wife, wants good children, he doesn't do that for these physical things. He wants something beyond that. And this thing, which is mental, that one that is looking for, this thing is what we need to aim towards. Therefore we say, in the corporeal world, we observe and look at things and how they happen to us. And based on that, we interpret what happens in our corporeal world to see what is the correction that we need to do within our soul, and then we translate that to actions that we'll do in order to do this tikkun, this correction. Again, let's give an example. When I look, let's say, see that I can't wake up at night to study, one time after another, and I see that I'm also late to work, and I see that I can't also pay bills in time, and I see that I don't prepare homework in advance, and so on. I look at life and I say, what's going on? What is it I really want? Do I want to really pay the bills on time? And I really want to wake up on time? No, that's not what I'm looking for. Rather, the fact that I don't wake up and I don't pay on time, that tells me something about my soul. And that thing, that mental thing, that's what I want to correct. Could be that I don't even have to fight the fact that I won't wake up on time, and perhaps I have to give up in advance and sleep more. But that's not the point. That's only 20% of life. The real thing that I need to understand from that is something mental. And let's say that I understand from that something mental, that my goals are not meaningful enough, and I live on a very shallow plane of desires, and if it's not something meaningful, then obviously I don't even care what happens. I'm half frustrated. I don't care what I'll do, but I don't care about anything. The house is not arranged. I don't even care anymore. So that I understand. Now that I understood something mental, I say, well, I have to correct this. How do we correct depression? What actions will help me to correct this mental thing? Notice how I make this transition from the physical world I learn into the soul, and then I ask myself, how do I use the physical world in order to come to a mental outcome? That's how I need to live. And the same thing in life, in the dream. So I saw in the dream that in the physical world I don't get enough data, and there's more information I can get from the dream that I did not get from the physical world. But what I want these data for? Why? What? Correct. In order to advance myself mentally, because it needs to tell me more things about my soul. But it should not tell me if I'm going to be more tired or not. No. And if I'm really tired, so I'll be very tired. And if my body is combed with metal combs, like Rabbi Akiva, he said, all my life I've been waiting for that. I've waited to reach that state where I could work Hashem with all the might, all my desire. I don't know. So I'll continue. And later I'll leave time for more questions. We start a little bit later, so we'll finish later. But principally, we will start on time at 7:30, and we'll finish a little later today. How do we research dreams today? So, for years, the entire research of the dreams was in the hands of people who dealt with mysticism. They could measure the brain waves, ECG, or EEG rather, electroencephalogram. And since dreaming relates to the mental side and the brain waves check the physiological side, so this EEG test is good, but it's also lacking because it doesn't speak of the mental side. It added a lot of knowledge, this research. On the one hand it's good, but on the other hand it blocked the mental side and channeled everything to only materialistic things. The wisdom of Kabbalah, however, things were known based on the order of the upper worlds, meaning if the upper world is built in such a way, and I dreamt in such a way, then I compare to the patterns I know in the real spiritual world. For example, if the dream starts from the world of Atzilut, doesn't matter the name, and it comes all the way to us, then I understand that I'm trying to interpret this to the patterns that I have in the upper worlds, and then I also understand what it is within the dream that I need to understand, because it has to match some kind of patterns. Like people, when they know all kind of processes in this world, and somebody tells them something, and they know where exactly they missed it, or the same thing in the spiritual world. I want to introduce you to all sorts of patterns that when you'll hear a certain dream, you'll know how to correlate it to this or that pattern. And we'll have a few patterns like this, and you'll have to see what pattern it belongs to. Based on the pattern that it belongs to, you'll be able to interpret the dream. The first obstacle in interpreting the dream is that we forget. We don't remember what we dreamt. We usually remember the dream that is the one closest to when we awake, and sometimes we awaken a few times at night, but to the extent that it's close to awakening, so to the extent that we remember the dream based on the codes of the wakefulness, that's why we actually remember the dream that is close to the to the wakefulness. It actually starts much earlier, but it comes to the point of awakening, and that's why I can remember, because my memory is based on technical things. By testing the brainwaves, we can awaken the person at the end of the dreaming process, and thus he can get more information about the dream. From the research, In Kabbalah, those time, their time, we know that these are 72 minutes. In science they say an hour and a half, but 72 minutes is the time of. There are things in the wisdom of Kabbalah, but it's not. But there are cycles of dreaming. You said that we remember the dream based on the codes of wakefulness? What do you mean? Meaning that in the codes of wakefulness, I see visual things. I see people, I see cars, I hear music. And that's how I hear it in the physical world. But my soul is built in a way that can also see very spiritual things, but I just don't know how to interpret them in a physical consciousness. But when I dream, I do see them, I just don't know how to interpret them. In spirituality, I know how to interpret them, but in the next world, I will be able to interpret them. But in this world, so how do I think in this world? I see a cup, I see people, I hear music, I smell sense, and then with words or stories, so through that I remember the dream, because my memory is based on these codes. The duration of the dream, how long do we dream for? It's between very few minutes, perhaps 1 minute, and 30 minutes in the very long dreams. We have to be in a state. Sometimes there are states where it's sleeping, not sleeping, sort of, especially people who sleep for many hours. So there are such people. So they're not really tired, but they're in between. They're not fully deeply asleep, but also they don't really feel like waking up. It's like snoozing. Sometimes we prefer to have all kind of visions because the corporeal reality is not so nice, but in the dream it's nicer, or in this illusion it's nicer, so it's good to run away or to be in that place. So they like to stay in this intermediate snoozing phase. These are actually dreams that we can remember, but they're less meaningful. The more meaningful dreams are not these ones. There are dreams that evoke or arise from very deep sleep. It wasn't a very long sleep, but rather dreams. These are the dreams that are more meaningful. The dreams in the beginning of the sleep, when I'm very deeply asleep, that's actually the most important dream. But it's a short dream, and in the beginning of the sleep, I mean after a person has already fallen asleep. I'm not speaking about insomnia where a person can't fall asleep. Yeah, the sleep is deep in the beginning. Oh. So really, the deep sleep is more meaningful, but we can remember it less. These are short dreams in the beginning of the sleep, and the more we sleep, the dreams are longer. But it comes from a deeper place of a person. It's more meaningful. Even when people have illusions or hallucinations or fantasies, they're less important. Even when a person brings himself into a state of sleepiness, or just a little before the sleep, he has all kind of fantasies or dreams, this is less important. That's what he plans in an unconscious manner to dream. But even within that, when he falls asleep, he goes into a deep or deeper place. That's okay. It only practices us to be patient, and we will be patient. Doesn't matter what happens. there is a relation between the motion or the movement of the eye and the state of the dream. Seemingly, we see not the people who are asleep with open eyes. There are such people. Rather, the eyeball actually moves, and based on research, physical research, we see that the eye moves. It's called the third eye in all kind of. The Baal Sulam actually writes in the introduction to the book of the Zohar that all the images we see are internal images, and what we see in front of us is because we have sort of a mirror in the back, in the brain, that we see it inside, but it actually reflects to us like it's in front of us. Like in a dream, I think the thing is outside of me, but actually there's nothing outside of me. So how do I see an image? I see it outside of me because it's within me, and even within me it looks as if it's outside of me. And when I open the eyes, I really think that I see it outside, but really I see it within my soul. Okay, think about the question, please, Yom. Based on what I understood, is it correct that you said that when we exit the dream, it's a simulation? Okay, so that means that within the dream we still do not interpret it, and it's only even within a dream, there are phases that belong to the simulation, and that's a place into which we can enter and to do something within these dreams. What does it mean? It means that we can actually act within the dream. If with the dream you want to enter deeper places from within the dream, you can do that and create all sorts of actions within the dream. But what happens in the part of the simulation that you go into a dream? Where is the soul at that point? So the soul is on different levels. When your consciousness, not the soul, your consciousness, when it's within a dream and you feel that you see the dream and you actually see it as part of the simulation in images. So this is a state that you can still deal with the dream with consciousness, and we'll learn how to create consciousness. So what does it mean that you're half within the dream, but you're actually aware of what's happening outside and you can awaken? You can't wake up. You talk about night sleep. No, I mean like at 1 o'clock, and you're aware of what's going outside, and at the same time you know that you can awake. No, it's something else. We'll speak about that. Okay. What is this matter? I think the Indians do that. That they somehow penetrate the subconsciousness during awakening. What is the idea behind it? Or is it? Well, every entry into the subconscious allows us to research deeper. It's not a good idea to do it with drugs. It's not a good idea to be Indians, or native Indians rather. There are better ways to do these things. These drugs are used to affect the human brain. Therefore, drugs are not recommended. We'll stop here. And we only have a few topics we haven't discussed. We'll talk about them shortly. I'll just say the conclusion. I'd like to summarize the lesson. We said the first point. We said as a first point that dealing with dreams comes to be able to use this dimension in our soul to advance as human beings. The dreaming in and of itself occurs within a person's conscious, and therefore through that we need to deal with the dream. A person's consciousness is what connects between the matter and the spirit, because both these measures are within a person's consciousness. Based on Kabbalah, the matter that we see is also spiritual, and therefore the entire corporeal perception is false. But we need it very much, and we must not let it go, because we need to build it correctly. Up to here, we studied more or less. Oh, okay, thank you.